Hello and welcome to the third and the Dawn Football Show. I am Joe. With me is Cecil, as always, here to recap another week of NFL football, preview another week of NFL football. We're getting down to the last weeks of the season, Cecil. It's December right now, a couple more weeks left. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great because my team, the Cincinnati Bengals, are performing well despite my best efforts to pick against them, which I'm going to claim was a jinx, reverse jinx, saying whatever I pick, they're going to do the opposite. So from now on, I just got to pick them to lose every
I
game, I
don't.
guess. So,
I don't think it's
but
going to
I'm
hold
really
up, buddy. I
happy.
really don't think you're going to do that.
You
Okay.
got to believe.
Well, we do have a lot to go over today, so we'll just get started, Cease. We'll start with Thursday Night Football. The Bills beat the Patriots 24-10, and that's about all I got on that one. You know what? Josh Allen played well, Stephon Diggs played well, and this is a classic case of the Bills are one of the best teams in the league, and the Patriots are very, very average this year.
Yeah, I mean the Bills have a really good offense, a pretty solid defense, even with the loss of Von Miller, who we now know is out for the season because they found a ACL tear while they're trying to repair the MCL, which is unfortunate for him and for that Bills team. But I mean, the Patriots, they have a very well coached defense. I wouldn't say they're elite; they're just very good at what they do. And from there, I mean, their offense is it's not going to wow anybody. It's not going to put strike fear in anybody's hearts. There's nobody that's really worrying about the Patriots hanging 35 points on them. So that's really what played out in this game clearly. And, the Bills are getting riding the ship right now after a couple of
Yeah,
shaky
that's the most
weeks.
important thing for them. They got a chance to go for the one seed, so hopefully they can smooth things out. Hopefully Josh Allen's arm is going to get better as the season goes on. Until we get, as long as we keep on going to these playoffs, that's what the thing needs to be the most focus on. All right, 1 p.m. games on Saturday or Sunday, excuse me. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Atlanta Falcons. The Steelers win 19-16. They got up in this game at the half. The defense was able to kind of hold on in this one. Najee Harris rushed for 86 yards. There was some there. I mean, Kenny Pickett didn't play terrible. He didn't play great. Just did the job. He looks like he might be someone that they can start to build around. Not maybe not, you know, by a long-term plan here, but it looks like he's earned the right to keep on going. And the only problem is George Pickens is complaining about getting the ball. That seems like it might be an issue, but Steelers again, solid team. They're gonna never be bad, but they're just not very good. They get the win here though.
Yeah, I mean, they do get the win. I love that a rookie receiver is complaining about
Mm-hmm.
not getting the ball enough. That's just funny to me. I mean, I don't know who's in that locker room, but most teams, if you start saying stuff like that, I don't care what your skill level is, especially if you're George Pickens. You start saying, "Where are my catches?" That's people are gonna probably clap right back at you. So, I mean, whatever. George Pickens is his own issue. He can't get out of his own way sometimes. That's why he got in trouble with Georgia and, just multiple things. I mean, but he's on the Steelers now. I mean, they have a strong enough locker room to be able to deal with him. But like you said, I mean, Kenny Pickett has just earned the right to solution in the short term. However, the bigger issue is probably going to be is Kenny Pickett going to get them to a Super Bowl ever? I don't know. I don't know if he's good enough to surround with talent to get to the Super Bowl either. Um, and they're going to be in that place where Kenny Pickett's going to have them kind of picking, probably the 15 to 20 range every year because of the way the team is coached. And that can hurt if you don't have that elite guy, you don't have that elite talent on your team if you're always picking, in the middle half of the draft because there's a lot of boom busts, there's a lot of you never know, there's no like real surefire elite prospects. It's just rolling a lot of dice for some guys that you never know if they're going to pan out, and the most important position on the field is one that's always going to be kind of a medium talent at best.
That is a concern for me too. Just being in the middle of the pack there with the guy you don't know is going to be the long term guy. But I don't know. I think this team speaks more to Mike Tomlin's coaching ability than anything else. They've had some injuries. They've kind of stuck with it. The defense is still pretty good. And in this week, there was someone in the tunnel who said, "Hey, Coach Tomlin," when he was walking out from halftime, and Tomlin's like, "Hey, don't bug me, I'm working here." So that kind of blue collar mentality and that the hyper focusedness on work sometimes works for the Steelers. It's working right now. They're 5-7, and again, doing better than a lot of people thought this year. Over to the NFC North, the Packers beat the Bears 28-19. The Bears started this one off hot. Justin Fields 254 yards in this game, but he throws two interceptions. Those end up costing them. The Packers Aaron Jones gets banged up, but A.J. Dillon has a pretty good game, 93 yards and a touchdown. Aaron Rodgers still officially owns the Bears. But again, this is two bad teams: 5-8 Packers, 3-10 Bears. Now, I mean, neither of these teams are really going to the playoffs.
Right, and that's the thing with the Bears are don't really have a defense anymore. They figured some stuff out with Justin Fields, but they packaged a lot of guys away before the season and throughout this season so far. So, I mean, they're going to give up points, and for Justin Fields to give away some turnovers like that, I mean, you can't do that in an NFL game. That's going to cost you, and that's something he's going to have to learn really quick in his young NFL career, especially against someone like Aaron Rodgers, who can make you pay, and if anything, he wants to go twice as hard because he just loves beating the Bears. So, I mean, they were out of it for a good part of the first half, and I mean, they just battled back. They took advantage of the turnovers, and I mean, Christian Watson took advantage, had another good game as a receiver. He's really coming on at the end of this year, so that could bode really well for the Packers organization in the future. And the running game, A.J. Dillon was able to fill in pretty well in relief of Aaron Jones. However, is any of that really going to affect this season or where they're going? No. If anything, they're just going to get a lower, higher draft pick later in the first round. So, it's good news that some of these guys are developing and stepping up, but ultimately, I mean, they're not going to make the playoffs. They're way too far out of it, as much as Aaron Rodgers wants to continue to say, we're not out of it yet. I mean, there's just no way they're going to make the playoffs. Just because they're not mathematically eliminated doesn't mean that it's going to happen anyway. They'll get pretty much mathematically eliminated with any other loss, or basically if a couple teams win a couple more games. So that's really it.
Winning out and hoping for basically a bunch of teams to lose is not really likely. I know this website, playoffstatus.com, has them at a 1% chance to make the playoffs, and you do have Aaron Rodgers, and he seems to always do this stuff, but no, not going to the playoffs. You have to hope that defense gets better. I think you have to fire defensive coordinator Joe Barry, and then that offense, get that offensive line healthy with David Bakhtiari, and try to run it back, and just with Christian Watson and maybe Romeo Dobbs' emergence next year and second year of being in the league, maybe that helps. The Jacksonville Jaguars and the Detroit Lions ceased. The Detroit Lions blew them out 40-14. Jared Goff, 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 114 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns. Offense was rolling. Defense played well. This is a game where we mentioned how their offensive line is they've really focused on that. It's worked, and that's been good for Jared Goff, who's a quarterback who plays well in that structure and with that protection. Lions at 5-7 now. Again, still one of the hottest teams in the league. They're not a team we're talking about for playoffs, but for a team like the Lions, who's had so many high draft picks in the past, I think they'd rather see this progress at this point of the season.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain point where you build up you stockpile draft picks. You've mortgaged away people. Heck, they traded away T.J. Hawkinson this year. So, I mean, they're going to get probably a top 5 pick with the way the Rams are playing right now. They have to worry that much about their own record. They're still going to get a really good first-round pick. And you're right. I want to see the playoffs. They've done everything to build a franchise. At a certain point, it goes, we need to see results or it's all for nothing, right? So that's where the Lions are at. And, I mean, we're seeing with a lot of good offensive. Is Jared Goff the long-term answer? I don't think so. The problem is that's so frustrating with Jared Goff, and something we saw with the Rams. He can be really good at times. Even in the same game, he can make great throws in tight windows. And other times you're scratching your head while he throws it into triple coverage and just doesn't see the safety coming over. It's just basic, entry-level rookie NFL stuff for a quarterback. So that's what's frustrating about Jared Goff. He's got the talent to do it. It's just sometimes the decision-making is just not there, and that's where they really suffer on offense. And then the defense, they just can't get off the field at times. They don't, they allow teams to convert too many third downs. And I mean, that's where most of their star power, I think, is going to go in this year's draft. They got Jeff Okudah 2 years ago. They got Aiden Hutchinson this year. You get a couple more defensive stars in the early rounds of the draft. And, I mean, this could be a very good team, unless one of the top premier quarterbacks fall to the Lions in the top 5, then maybe think about that as well. But the defense is really what's holding this team back from being pretty good, especially in a weak NFC North.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm interested. Both these teams, I think, would take where they're at right now, right? So, like the Lions 5-7, showing some improvements. Jaguars 4-8, showing some improvements. I think we found that Trevor Lawrence is that guy when he's healthy. Maybe get some more help next year too. And the Lions again just decently well built on offense. They got to figure out that defense, but they do have some young talent on the defense as well. The Vikings beat the Jets 27-22. This was a game where both quarterbacks kind of didn't play that well for different reasons. Kirk Cousins had 173 yards, 1 touchdown, and he just kind of dink and dunk. Mike White, on the other hand, 369 yards, but 2 interceptions. This game was one, I think, where the Vikings were at home. They have the better team. They were able to win out even without the great offense, which is good to see them win a different type of game than just rather giving the ball to Justin Jefferson every play.
Exactly. And that's the thing with the Vikings. I mean, they're going to be always limited by Kirk Cousins. Talk about it till we're blue in the face if we want to. This Vikings team, still not convinced. I'm still putting them in the fraud column. As much as they keep winning these games, they played the Jets, of all people, who nobody should be completely sold on. The big thing is Mike White was on the goal line this close to winning a game against the Vikings in Minnesota. So that should tell you right there where this team's at. Is this Jets team better than it was? Yes. And Mike White does make it functional. However, there's a lot of things that this Jets team, really shouldn't be this close in the race for. They're not a complete team. They've had a lot of injuries. They're just fighting with grit, which is hats off to the coaching staff in the locker room to continue to do that. But here the Vikings, I mean, they play down to not good teams. And they play down to whatever the level of their skill is of the team across from them. If somebody just shuts down Justin Jefferson and finds a way, which Dalvin Cook will get his, but Kirk Cousins is going to make a bunch of plays. And that's where they're going to struggle, and that's why I'm still saying, I mean, if they don't get the first round bye, depending on the matchup, unless they play one of the really weak, the 7 seed that's a pretty weak in this, NFC, I think they could be an early exit. I mean, I think they could go out in the wild card round. It's very possible depending on the wild card team they draw.
Fair enough. I will say I'm a little bit higher on the Vikings than you. We've talked about this in the past, but I do think their matchup's going to be favorable because I think they might get the Commanders or the Giants. And you know what, Cecil, let's just go right into it because those two teams played and they tied, and that's not fun for anyone. Daniel Jones, 200 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 71 yards rushing in this game. Saquon Barkley was kind of shut down, so he took advantage of that and ran the ball. For the Commanders, Taylor Heineke, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns. You would like to get this win if you're the Commanders on the road, but I think, honestly, you might take the tie because that could be the difference between playoffs and not playoffs for you. We were at a point where all NFC East teams were in the playoffs, and, winning on the road is tough, so I get it, but you never want to tie a game, but at the end of the season, it might be the thing that saves them.
Right, and, I mean, if I'm looking right now, the season ended today, who I'd rather take in a playoff game, I'd take the Commanders. The thing with the Giants is that just aren't any playmakers on this team. Saquon Barkley, he is obviously a playmaker. I misspoke there. But, I mean, besides that, they can key in on him. And then what does his offense have? Richie James. We've got I think Sterling Shepard is hurt. I don't even know if he's there anymore. But we got a bunch of no-name receivers, basically. I almost said Victor Cruz for a second. So, I know that was a throwback New York Giants receiver. But that just shows you kind of where they are. Kenny Golladay contract did not work out. Kadarius Toney, they traded to the Chiefs because he didn't work out. I think they're just tossing up to a will and a prayer that they somehow get OBJ. I don't, what does that look like coming back from an ACL tear? I mean, I guess it's better than what they have currently. But that's a lot to bank on one mid-season signing because the guy tore his ACL in February. So, yeah, I mean, I got to go with the Commanders because, I mean, the edge, Daniel Jones is better than Taylor Heineke, but by how much and how much does that difference matter in the functioning of an offense that has a bunch of other role players around him? Because you look at the Commanders, they got some weapons. They got Scary Terry out there. They signed Curtis Samuels, who's played decently well at times throughout the season. And they got two-headed monster now with Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson out there in the running backs in the backfield. So, I mean, there's a lot of good makings of a working offense, and they've got a really good front seven. We keep talking about that year after year. They just have linebackers or linemen from Alabama. So it's worked out pretty well for them. Chase Young, I think, is finally back as well. He's slowly getting better. And, it sucks that both teams kind of played for a tie and weren't able to score a field goal into this game, but it definitely helps the Commanders more than it helps the Giants because now the Giants will have to go to DC to win a game in a pretty hostile crowd. So, like I said, I mean, I'll pick the Commanders if I had to rank them in a power ranking. It's definitely Commanders over Giants in my
Yeah,
mind
two
right
teams
now.
trending in different directions. Washington started off the year kind of slow, then picked it up. Giants started off the year hot. They're kind of fading. That's somehow times how it works with some of these new first-time head coaches. Brian Daboll, I think, is still doing a great job. But you're right because the Commanders have a way better chance to make the playoffs right now. The Giants are 7-4-1, so they've one less game played. But now you got the Commanders coming up on the schedule again in a week from now. That's going to be on the road for them. NFC playoff picture is still looking pretty NFC East heavy. Might be all four teams in because if we assume that the Bucks are going to win the NFC South, then the teams you're battling with for the last playoff spot are going to be the Falcons, Panthers, Lions, Packers if they can go on a run. So, I mean, if you take care of some business, I think all these teams are getting in. But I'm with you. I think I like the Commanders better than the Giants as things currently sit. Next game up, we'll stay with an NFC East team. The Eagles hosted the Titans. Eagles win big, 35-10. Wasn't even a game that was worth watching past the first half. We know that the Eagles are good. We know they're going to be possibly the number one seed, possibly not even lose another game the rest of the regular season unless they want to at the end of the season with the bye already clinched. The Titans, we can talk about it. They were very hot. They lost to the Bengals. They lost to the Eagles. That's not the concerning part. The concerning part is their offensive coordinator, Todd Downing. 11 carries, 30 yards for Derrick Henry. What are we doing? I mean, you don't panic when you get down in the first half. You don't throw out the game plan. You don't stop giving the ball to Derrick Henry. Their use of him has been baffling. They take him out on third and shorts, take him out on third and fours. Best player on your team, and you just take the ball out of his hands too much. We've talked about that. We've definitely have him in on our rosters for fantasy, different rosters for fantasy, and it's something that frustrates us, but just seems to be coming to a head here.
Right. And I mean, you could talk about the fantasy applications that adds an extra layer of frustration for us, but you're right. I mean, he's their best player on their team. Their quarterback is Ryan Tannehill to this day. Now, Ryan Tannehill had one good season when they weren't expecting him to do anything, and he's had okay seasons since then, but he can struggle mightily at times. And the way their offensive coordinator calls a game, it's baffling. I get they're built to not be able to really win from behind because it's a run first team and it's about being aggressive with defense. But I mean, they'll be down by 14 points in the second quarter. They just stopped giving the ball to Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry was literally like almost not even seen in the second half. That's how stupid it was. I'm just like, so basically, Derrick Henry isn't allowed to play unless you guys are up by a touchdown or you're within a touchdown. That seems like a very poor cap allocation if that's how you're going to use one of the best running backs in the NFL and just a very dumb coaching decision. I mean, they do this in all games, though. I mean, we'll watch any game where if they get a holding penalty on first down, it's 1st and 20. They try attempt to a pass that's usually an incompletion because Ryan Tannehill is, not very good at times, and then it's 2nd and 20, and then Derrick Henry is just out for the rest of the drive, and that's just how they do it. And I mean, the Eagles got ahead quick, sure, and once that happens, the offensive play calling becomes very stale, and just leaning on Ryan Tannehill to win you games is not going to work, especially when Treylon Burks went out after that pretty gruesome-looking head injury. He should be okay, they said, so that's good, but it did great when it happened, and we're glad he's all right. But, yeah, at the end of the day, the Eagles against teams that, they're kind of built really well against. I'm really everybody's penciling it. It's that, Christmas Eve matchup with the Cowboys. That's going to be the true test. I think it's really their only tough game left on their schedule. So, I mean, that's what we all want to see. That's because that's pretty much the only top tier talent they play the rest of the way. So, we'll see the Eagles, blunder their lead and just have a cupcake game they, overlook. Or if they really are the real deal. Because you're right. They beat the Cowboys. They couldn't lose. They might not lose another game the entire season. So, Eagles in a great spot. Titans still going to win the AFC South, but they got to figure some stuff out by the time they get to the playoffs. Because whoever the 5 seed's probably going to be, because they're probably going to be the 4 seed, is probably going to be pretty tough.
I'd agree with that. Lots of things to figure out for the Titans and Eagles. I mean, just the best team this season so far. We'll see if that holds up heading into the playoffs with that easier schedule leading up to it. A game no one wanted to watch, Cease. Denver Broncos and Baltimore Ravens. Ravens win 10-9. They need Tyler Huntley to come into the game because Lamar Jackson gets hurt. He is out days to weeks. I would expect this not to have too big of an issue with the playoff picture. The Ravens are 8-4, and according to playoff status, they have a 90% chance to make the playoffs. But just a boring game. Tyler Huntley's an okay backup quarterback too. He's done well in the past, but there was no offense in this game, and honestly, this was one of the most boring games of the season.
Yeah, it was really frustrating, because we thought for a second that maybe we get an easy win on the Ravens and they'd lose the game 9-3, and I mean the Broncos couldn't hold it up for the last minute of the game. So that's what happened here. Frustrating as a Bengals fan, and I mean the Ravens just I talked about it last week. Lamar Jackson wasn't in, so that affected this game a little bit. He got hurt early on, but their offense is just not good. It's just not well designed. It's just very unimaginative, and sure they've had injuries, but it just again it's looking unfunctional in the way the Titans offense at times just looks unfunctional. Like if it doesn't go exactly the way they need it to, everything goes out the window and they just become unable to advance the ball at all. So are they going to miss the playoffs? Like you said, probably not. I mean, there's a very large margin of error for them. However, with this injury, they're tied with the Bengals in record right now. And the Bengals are surging, and the Ravens over the last couple weeks, they're not. Like, that's the easiest way to put it. If anything, they've struggled mightily with Lamar Jackson. Now they're playing a tough division game with the Steelers, who've been playing a little bit better as this season's going on, and now they've got their backup in. We'll talk about that matchup. But, I mean, they're in jeopardy of losing the division, which will be a really big deal to them because if they lose the division, they got to go on the road to play some pretty tough teams. So, again, not a place they want to be. Ultimately, for them, it's about getting their team healthy to get to that playoff stretch. But, they really don't want to lose, a pretty high seeding and maybe a couple home games, especially when a lot of the teams that you might be going up against are some pretty rough teams. Like you could end up in Buffalo or Kansas City, or, you could have to play the Bengals in Cincinnati versus having to play them at home. So, yeah, not looking great for the Ravens when it comes to where they're at right now, but there's still a good amount of the season left. We're talking about probably the last third of the season is still to be played at this point, and, we're kind of excited. I guess really the last quarter.
Yeah, definitely. See, it's another game that I really don't want to talk about, but we're going to because that's what we do here. The Browns beat the Texans 27-14 in Deshaun Watson's return. Deshaun Watson looks awful. The Browns defense makes a lot of plays against the Texans, and Kyle Allen, who's starting. Texans are now moving back to Davis Mills, which they probably should have stuck with in the first place. But again, we knew the Texans sucked. We knew the Browns were going to win this game. We knew that, we didn't know that the defense was going to step up that much, I guess, is the one thing we didn't know.
Yeah, it looked close for a little bit there because the Browns offense was completely ineffective. Deshaun Watson looked awful. And I get he hasn't played in 2 years, and all that, 700 days. They talked about it a million times. It's not like he hasn't practiced at all. And I get, again, that's why I wasn't a big fan of picking, the Browns to blow out the Texans by any means, just because he was very, very, stiff and not where he usually would be a quarterback. What does that mean for the rest of the season? I don't know. How long does it take a quarterback to get acclimated to, not playing for 2 years? Is this the Deshaun Watson that's going to mesh with his offense as well as they're hoping he is? I mean, there's a lot of just anointed Deshaun Watson is going to be Cleveland without really much proof of all. And there's some concerns, and there should be the ones that everyone in the Cleveland Browns organization ignores. And I'm really interested to see how that develops the rest of the year. But bottom line is Deshaun Watson stunk. And without their defense scoring a bunch of touchdowns on Texans, just complete ineptitude, and then also a nice, special teams, always a punt return by Donovan Peoples-Jones. That's their whole – they didn't score an offensive touchdown. I don't think they scored – I think they scored a field goal on offense. And that's it. Like, that's real bad, especially for a team who, honestly, playing better with Jacoby Brissett. If I was – right now going in this, if I was really serious about the playoffs, I mean, I would think Jacoby Brissett's the answer for this season at this point. I mean, if you're really going for it. Because Deshaun is not going to be the one to probably elevate his play in the next 3 weeks to be where you want it to be. I mean, they weren't going to ever make noise in the playoffs. They're very just run-first heavy team. And Yeah, I have all I can say about this. The Texans stink. Deshaun Watson stinks, and I hope the Browns just implode the rest
Don't
of the
we all,
season.
buddy? Don't we all? The playoffstatus.com has the Browns at 2% chance to make the playoffs. So if they want to start Deshaun Watson, get everything rolling for next year, I understand why that might be. But you're right. If they're trying to win now, Jacoby Brissett's the guy to play. It's just you don't have time to mess with getting someone unrusty at this point. NFC West, Seattle Seahawks beat the Los Angeles Rams 27-23. Cease, this one's honestly probably closer than we thought. John Wolford did play quarterback for the Rams. He came back this week. But the Seahawks getting the win is the most important thing for them. They're 7-5. Geno Smith had 367 yards passing and 3 touchdowns in this one. And now they sit at a 75% chance of making the playoffs as the NFC wild card is pretty thin.
Right. And I think the Seahawks will ultimately be one of the wild card teams in this. However, they are kind of falling off as of late. The defense is not playing anywhere near as well as it was early in the season. Gino's still doing a decent job, but it's not as well as it was early. And, Kevin Walker went down with injury, who's really been a surge for them. So, they end up getting it, but it was way too close for my liking. Team that is without any of its really star talent.
I would say the same. Very underwhelming performance for the Seahawks, and I'm interested to see how they finish down the stretch. They've used this whole team concept and like doing it together, and no one really cares who gets the credit thing for so long. But that only lasts for so long too when we start getting to the winter months of the season. All right, the 49ers beat the Dolphins 33-17, and Mike McDaniels returned to the Bay Area. The thing that changed with this game kind of late were both offensive tackles were out for the Dolphins. That changed things up, and the 49ers were able to take advantage and get the win. Tua had a pretty bad game. The bigger news from the game, sees Jimmy Garoppolo goes out with an injury. He is likely done for the season. They're saying giving him a very, very, very outside chance of maybe returning in the playoffs at some point. The 49ers have they've signed from, I think, the Saints practice squad, maybe someone else's practice squad, Josh Johnson, who's in his 4th stint with the 49ers and played for 13 NFL teams. Everyone knows him at this point because he's probably been your backup at some point. But they're looking like they're going to go with Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy. The nickname, he has the nickname Big Cock Brock now after his performance, and he played okay. 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and Cease, as we were talking earlier this weekend when we were watching the game, the 49ers are the one team where the quarterback matters probably the least in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, if this was any other team in the NFL and the quarterback went down besides like a bottom, 5 team, I would say, it's a pretty big loss. Is really going to affect their season. I don't think it's really going to affect the rest of the regular season for the 49ers very much at all. We've seen Jimmy G make some pretty bad mistakes at times. He hasn't really done anything that's great. Somehow his stats look better than he looks on the field to me. And that's just the truth. It just like his stats and his ratings don't seem to meet the eye test over the last year. Now, is he better than probably a rookie, Mr. Irrelevant? Yeah. I mean, Brock Purdy played well, though, so that's good. And, maybe he meshes well with Shanahan's system, and he's not going to be asked to do too much in the regular season especially. The 49ers, I think, are still going to win the NFC West. They're going to make the playoffs. I'm pretty absolutely certain with that. However, come playoff time, that's where things, I think, get a little more dicey, especially with Brock Purdy, because, you're playing a pass rush like the Cowboys or, you do end up playing someone like the Vikings who should be good. You play the Eagles. Those are tough teams, and, they're going to make him throw the ball. And I don't know if Brock Purdy's really going to be up for that. Maybe we'd be wrong. That'd be a heck of a story to get a rookie Mr. Irrelevant to somehow make a deep playoff run. But I don't necessarily see that coming. I'm not super confident in that. But, the 49ers, like you said, and we talked about, is a team that kind of schemes away from the quarterback. They don't ask him to make a lot of true, drop back throws. It's a lot of screens, a lot of quick outs, things that most quarterbacks, no matter really what their talent level is, as long as they're at NFL, backup level, they can make these throws. It's just really if they're in a 3rd and 15, 3rd and 20 kind of throw, they aren't going to probably be able to make. I don't know what Brock Purdy is going to do in that situation. And but they got the defense, they got the running game, they got some weapons that can do things in space to make this loss manageable rest of the season. But come playoff time, every person, I just don't know where that is.
Yeah, this is I think the 49ers are in a situation where they have to go find a quarterback, but the problem is the trade deadline's passed, all the good ones are taken, so you have to go basically into the retirement space, in my opinion, or the free agent space if you really want to. But all the good ones are taken. Um, Ryan Fitzpatrick just retired. Maybe you can see if he comes back for a stretch run where he just is the guy to for the last couple months here. RG3 has played in the Shanahan system. He was a great backup for Baltimore. You got to find someone to play quarterback if you're serious about winning the Super Bowl. And I do think they have a Super Bowl roster, and I thought they were a quarterback away, even with Jimmy Garoppolo. But without Jimmy Garoppolo, they're likely a team that maybe loses first round of the playoffs. So go call Ryan Fitzpatrick. Go call RG3. Go call one of these guys out of retirement. I guess a lot of the guys are still attached to their former teams, like Drew Brees would be attached to the Saints. They'd have to let him off the hook. Maybe they would do that because they'd honor him, but you need someone, you know. Andrew Luck is getting his graduate degree at Stanford right now. You could try to talk to him. He's very content to not be playing football right now, but go get someone. If you are doing your team a disservice if you don't try to get one of those 5, 10 guys who retired recently or whatever. Josh Johnson is a good first step to get as a backup, but what are we doing here if you're not going to go get a quarterback? All right, Las Vegas Raiders beat the Los Angeles Chargers 27-20. The Raiders starting to come to life after their abysmal start to the season. This really hurts the Chargers' playoff chances. Sees they're now 6-6 in the AFC, where there's a lot of good teams in the playoff picture. Converse to the NFC, the Chargers have a 33% chance to make the playoffs right now. That's not something I think we thought we'd be saying at this point of the year.
No, I'm starting to get to that point where I don't know if Brandon Staley's the guy in Los Angeles for the Chargers. I mean, they keep getting beat by the Raiders, and the Raiders are not a better team than that. If anything, they're just a grittier team, and just knows how to like make plays in a timely way. It's not like the Raiders played elite this game. You know, Devontae Adams got his big plays. I mean, he's their only passing weapon, really. And then you got Josh Jacobs, who's going to run all over you, and that's their offense. Derek Carr isn't elite. Derek Carr is above average to average, depending on who you ask. I think he's above average. I think he's right below that top 10 mark. But still, I mean, you look at the Chargers, injuries or not, they got great weapons. They've got a great running back. They've got Justin Herbert, who's supposed to be, you know, a machine, Mr. Automatic when it comes to playing the QB position. And he looks great at times, but for some reason, they can't score enough points to win any of these games. They're 500 for a team that has Super Bowl window everyone was talking about this year. And at a certain point, you know, you watch these games, you look at the play calling, and you can't blame it all on injuries year after year. But it just seems like situationally and just the whole idea of the actual game flow and what starting to falter. And it just seems like they just don't. They're just a finesse team, is what it feels like. And that, you know, that's gonna be a strong word, especially when you talk about football. But that's what they feel like. They don't feel like a team you're ever going to be really afraid of playing because they're going to want it more than you. Just feel like, you know, they're going to toss the ball. It's going to look great because Justin Herbert has a heck of an arm. And at the end of the day, though, you know, do they want it? And that's really what it comes down to. And that, I think that starts with the head coach and his identity of, I mean, it feels like more you should just run a simulation of what a Chargers game should be versus, you know, just watching them play, because that's what it feels like at times. It can feel lifeless, analytical, and, you know, analytic. And I'm not against it. And their head coach and the identity they've taken is one that doesn't seem to really work.
Yeah, I think Staley's gotten his fair share of criticism this year. Last year, I think he was still like the golden child. This year, it's not going his way. I think they'd love to have that Jaguars game back, specifically after we've seen what the Jaguars have done since. But the good news for the Chargers is the schedule finishes easy. The bad news is before it finishes easy, they have 2 tough games. They have to play the Dolphins and the Titans back-to-back, which the Dolphins, we know they're a pretty good team this year. The Titans, the Chargers don't really stop the run the last couple of years. They're playing Derrick Henry in that game, so that's going to be a problem. I think that those two losses could set them at 6-8 if they get to that point. They have to win out just to have a chance to make the playoffs at 9-8. That's not great. So maybe some must-win games coming up against competition where you would not want to say that about. All right, we'll go over to the Chiefs and Bengals game. Cease. The Bengals win this one 27-24. This is the rematch of the AFC Championship game. There's a lot of trash talk going on between players, between fans of these teams. Joe Burrow played an excellent game, 25 of 31 passing, for 286 yards and 2 touchdowns. Samaje Perine, 21 carries for 106 yards. Jamar Chase, 7 receptions for 97 yards. The key is here that the Chiefs get some momentum going in the third quarter. The Bengals are down 24 to 20. 24 to 20, and Jermaine Pratt strips the ball. Travis Kelce. The Bengals go on long touchdown drive. They get a touchdown in the fourth quarter, and they don't look back. The defense steps up big time. So this is a big win for the Bengals in terms of playoff chances, in terms of maybe even being in play for our first overall seed, or at least home field advantage in the playoffs for the first round. Really big win considering their tough schedule coming up.
Yeah, I mean, it was a monumental win. Obviously, it means more to the Bengals than it does to the Chiefs. The Chiefs are still very much in the driver's seat of their own destiny to get the number 1 seed and the first round bye. However, this obviously they're tied with the Bills. It looks like. So I mean, the Bills have to lose one more game, which is very well as a possibility of. But ultimately, what this means for the Bengals is, on a national spotlight against a team that everyone always talks about how amazing they are and how they're basically a dynasty. You should probably disagree with, because, I mean, you win one Super Bowl, you lose another, you lose in the AFC Championship game twice. I mean, it's a very good team, but a dynasty, like, we don't call the Bills a dynasty. They lost 4 Super Bowls. Is it just you win 1 Super Bowl when you're a dynasty now if you make deep playoff runs? I don't think so. But it's just that way with the Chiefs. The Chiefs are the team. They're not the young and upcoming team. They seem to be the standard in the AFC. And, they earned it at times with the Super Bowl win with Patrick Mahomes. But you look on the opposite, who basically have to rip and claw for respect the last 2 years. And, they got off to a slippery start at the beginning of this season with a lot of kind of fluky things that happened. And we've talked about that en masse here as well. But, I mean, the Bengals are back into the form they were at the end of last season. And everybody in the NFL should take note of that and be concerned about that, because they can do the same thing. Zach Taylor somehow becomes a different coach when he plays the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it just everyone gets so much more motivated to play the Chiefs because they just want to prove that they are, better than them. And I mean, it works though. I mean, he's much more aggressive. The play calling more aggressive, and everyone just seems to be ready to go, which, I mean, that's easy to do when you're the hunted and, you're the hunter, and, the Chiefs are the hunted in this. The Bengals, again, probably wanted it more than Kansas City did. And it showed on the field. But the Bengals, it's not even like, post game in the end, the Bengals finished it out. But there were some missed opportunities for the Bengals to score even more points. I mean, we're talking wide open touchdown cast that Tyler Boyd did, just straight up miss. Unfathomable considering, look at his drop percentage. He's like top NFL active rosters, in lowest drop balls. So, there's a 4th down call, the wrong Dunlap of the Chiefs did it perfectly. So, I mean, they could have. Also, there's chances where this game is nowhere near as close as it was. But we talk about the gutsy play calling on that long 3rd down at the end of the game to finish it. A dart right in the middle to T. Higgins where only he make that play. And I mean, that's where we're at. It's about plays if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. The defense doing, timely things, coming up with that key turnover, and really making a statement that I think can help propel them for the rest of the season. And I mean, they very much are on the hunt for. I mean, they are in position. I mean, they play the Bills. They could be in for the 1 seed. If they don't lose another game, they went out. And the Chiefs just need to lose one more. They'll beat the Bills, and they will be there. There's a real road to that point. Is that going to happen? That's really hard to say. It's hard to say that they're going to go and have beat the Bills and they're just going to win out and win every game the rest of the season. I'd love to see it, but that's hard to say. But I think they're going to win the AFC North, especially considering the Lamar Jackson injury now. And they're going to get a home playoff game. And I mean, when you get there, I mean, who's to say what's going to happen? The Bills don't have Von Miller anymore. That was one of the biggest worried about with the Bengals matching up is against the premier pass rusher. The Bills had that with Von Miller. They don't have that now. They still have a really solid base there, though. Ravens, I'm not as concerned about. I'm not as, the Chiefs, always concerned about. Anytime, that was my big thing, reasoning behind the pick last week. Is that I don't think we can't beat the Chiefs, or the Chiefs are that much better than us. But I think, a streak runs out sometimes. And, to say they're just going to keep winning against the Chiefs over and over is hard to just keep predicting. So that was part of the theory. I said it was going to be a razor close game, and it ended up being such. Just happened to bounce in the way the Bengals wanted to, and I wanted it to as well. But the big takeaway here is the Bengals are they're right in the prime position to make some noise in the playoffs this year. As long as they can keep the momentum they're on fire now and propel that through the rest of the season, because we still got a couple games before we go to playoff time. And the Chiefs, they're going to be fine. They're still going to be a very good team, but I think they're going to get frustrated at some point, and I think at this point they really just don't want to play the Bengals in the playoffs. I think they're concerned about that. I think they don't match up well with them, and I think they're starting to kind of buy into. They're a little not afraid, but they're cautious that they could pick another play someone.
Well, see, their players certainly are saying that they want another shot at the Bengals. I don't think that's actually true, like you think. I will say, since we talked about some of the contenders here, the best odds to go to or win the Super Bowl this year, there's 7 teams, and I think especially after the Jimmy Garoppolo injury, these are the 7 teams. I would say Eagles, Vikings, Bills, Chiefs, Cowboys, Bengals, Dolphins. I think that's really. We talked about pretty much half of them right there in that. That's where you want to be. Like I don't know which one of those teams will come out on top. The Chiefs and Bengals are both there, right? So the Chiefs technically have a little bit better shot to win the Super Bowl according to the metrics here, but that's the fact that the Bengals got to this point after where they started is incredible. And they have a better chance to win the Super Bowl than the Ravens, who the Ravens started off the year really hot. This is where you want to be. So I'm very happy with where they're at. I'm very happy they're one of the 7 teams with the best chances to win the Super Bowl. And these are the elite teams this year by far. I think there's a direct cutoff after those Dolphins. All right, let's go to the Sunday night game, Cease. The Cowboys beat the Colts 54-19. The only thing I have to say about this game, Cease, this was the funniest game of all time because people could have gone to sleep after the third quarter, and it's 21-19 after the Colts failed a 2-point conversion to tie the game, and the Cowboys end up winning 54-19. It was like the biggest, like any way that the Colts could fail in the fourth quarter, they did. Cowboys win. They're a much better team. We know that.
Yeah, I mean, it was an absolute implosion in the fourth quarter if you're the Colts, and comically so, like you said. I mean, it is concerning that, the Cowboys and played the Colts super close for 3 quarters, but again, it's one of those weird games, and, the Colts do have a surprisingly good defense still, and I think the Cowboys are going to be fine. They need to roll on. They really dominated that fourth quarter, surprisingly so. And, the Colts lost 2 straight. I don't think the Jeff Saturday thing is working out as well as they were hoping to. I think, they beat the Raiders. That was great. At a certain point, they got to find someone who's a little bit more like their actual head coach of the future here instead of just Jeff Saturday, who shouldn't stick around after this year. If they hire him, I'd say that's a huge
I would
mistake.
too. He's got to prove a whole lot in his last 5 weeks to get that job. But Cowboys 9-3 now. Again, not somewhere where we thought we'd be after the first week of the season, but they've really gotten better. Offense is scoring the most points in the league, I think, since Dak's returned from his injury. Defense, we know that they're playing really well this year. Very excited about them. And again, as we just talked about, one of the 7 teams with the best odds to win the Super Bowl. They deserve to be there. They're one of the 7 elite teams this year, just like the Bengals and Chiefs we talked about last game. So lots of kudos to them. Monday Night Football sees the Bucs and Saints. Mentioned this is one where you probably could have missed, taking the girlfriend, wife, boyfriend, whatever, out to dinner and just skipped it. But it ended up being interesting in the end. The Saints end up going up 13-3, 16-3, and then they have a chance to ice the clock, give the ball to Mark Ingram, who went back into the game with a, I believe, sprained MCL, and he runs out of bounds before getting the first down with like 6.5 minutes left. Uh, the Saints fail to get the first down. The Buccaneers end up scoring 14 straight points to win 17-16. If Mark Ingram gets that first down, it's basically over. But he could have just run forward and he would have had it. He missed it. A lot of people who are conspiracy theorists say the NFL is fixed. I don't really believe that. I think the Saints could have won this game and the Buccaneers could still make the playoffs very easily, and everyone can get that Tom Brady, fix the NFL or anything like that conspiracy going. But just a blunder of a move by Mark Ingram, even if he was in the game injured, and the Saints blew this one.
Yeah, I literally sat there and made the exact same joke that I'm like but the NFL is fixed because that's exactly what it looked like at times. And I said right before Tom Brady got the ball at the end, I'm like, I swear, if they do one of these stupid comeback drives because the other team is just so inept at managing time and managing a defense for 4 minutes of game, I'm just gonna freak out. And it all happened exactly. I was afraid it would. You got Mike Evans sprinting down the field on on Paulson Adobe, who literally has like inside leverage and there's no safety help over the top. And Mike Evans just sprints right by him. And of course, Tom Brady's going to literally chuck it as far down the field as he can. And he pulls a pass call. I mean, that's just textbook stuff. I don't know why the Saints are allowing receivers to just sprint down the field. I mean, you don't have to play absolute prevent, but maybe their number one receiver, their biggest, like, long, deep threat, big, tall, lanky guy, don't let him run right by you. Don't put him on a corner who's, I think like 5'10". Don't put yourself in that situation as a team. You're up by 2 positions. He literally make him methodically go down the field twice. Make him use all the time so there's time restraints because that big play happened. They scored right after. They got the ball right back, used some timeouts. And they had like almost 2 minutes to score down the field. And when you have that much time on the clock, you can meticulously do whatever you want. And all the pressure's on the other side because the defense is trying to not give up the big play, but they're also slowly losing yards. And it's just a horrible place to be when you have that. And the Saints played perfectly into everything they're not supposed to do. It's so frustrating because now there's this whole Tom Brady's, still got it. Tom Brady's gonna, destroy the playoffs in the NFC. And it's like I just don't want to hear any of that anymore because it's not factual. It's based on we've got the Rams, we've got the Saints, two bad NFL teams, both just blowing it in games. Just absolutely just let Tom Brady and the Bucs do everything that anyone watching at home should say them do. But why we're not running a cover 2 or something of that nature with some deep safeties to make sure there's no big plays over the top, I don't know. It's 2 possessions. Let him dink and dunk for 2 minutes. Who cares? Make him have to throw some deep balls on the last drive. Don't give him methodically 2 minutes to score another touchdown to win the game. I was very frustrated. I've never been so frustrated about such a stupid game that I had no investment in my life because I just can't stand the whole Tom Brady fanfare that happens because these teams are idiotic.
There you go. There's your rant, Cease. Got it all out. It has to feel good. You do not like dumb football, so that's good.
Yes.
You got that out, and we can move forward now. All right, let's go to our picks for the week, Cease. We have Thursday Night Football, another banger for Al Michaels, who will be bored and tell you how bored he is in the booth, and I actually kind of love that. The Las Vegas Raiders at the Los Angeles Rams. Currently, the line sits at 6.5 in favor of the Raiders on the road.
Give me the Raiders to win, and I'm going to take the Rams with the points. They played decently well last week, and I think the Raiders just don't have a good defense at all. It'll be,
I got the Raiders to win and cover. I think the last week, John Walford comes back, that's fine, but they're going to end up having more attrition as time goes on with this team, with guys already out. Aaron Donald's banged up too now. The Raiders are hot. I'll take the Raiders win by at least a touchdown. I don't know. I just don't like the Rams right now. Next up, we have the Jaguars at the Titans. Titans favored by 4.
Give me the Titans to win and cover. They should win this game. Titans are a much better team than the Jaguars are. Trevor Lawrence is a little hurt. I think Derrick Henry barely did anything last week, so he should be pretty well rested to run against a Jaguars team that's not fantastic against the run by any means. Jaguars are all banged up, and the Titans need to
Yeah,
start
Titans to
winning
win
some
and
games.
cover. Yes, the performances weren't good the last 2 weeks, but they were playing really good football the last several weeks before that. Before they ran into the Bengals and Eagles, two of the best teams in the league. They're at home in this one. Like you said, Derrick Henry will get going. I think they win by at least touchdown. All right, next one up is one of the more peculiar lines we've ever seen. Everyone's wondering what Vegas knows. We have the Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. The Lions are favored by 2.5 points in this game, Cease. 2.5, they're favored by.
2 points?
Yeah.
And it's in Detroit,
favored
right?
by 2.5 at home over the Vikings.
I guess the home. I mean, I don't know what they're seeing either. I guess it maybe the Lions are in a desperation mode. It's do or die to make the playoffs, and the Vikings are in this weird limbo zone of they're not going to get the number one seed. They're probably going to be the 2 seed almost no matter what, considering how dumpster fire the NFC South is, and I don't think the 49ers are going to catch up to them. And the NFC West or the Seahawks, whoever. So they're in this limbo of like this game doesn't really matter that much to them, and the Lions are there, but 2.5 points, like at least how are the Lions? I just don't understand how the Lions are favored. That's the only logic I have. I've got to go with the Vikings to win, and I guess I'll take the 3 points. To see what Vegas knows that I don't. I want the Lions to win. I think that'd be fun. But Vikings are a better team and should win this game.
Yeah,
I'm
going Vikings to win it with the points too. It feels like it's too easy. It feels like one of these bets where we usually say, hey, go run to the casino. But this has got to be a Vegas trap where they just know something. Like, I don't know. I'd be hesitant to call this one a lock, but it is pretty much a lock, I would say. If you were to pick a lock this week, it's going to be that one.
I mean, can we call them? I mean, clearly Vegas knows the Vikings are frauds because, I mean, how can you have, 2 losses on the season and be 2.5-point underdogs to a Detroit Lions team who at times has looked almost completely, in shambles? So questions abound.
Yeah,
Can't see how it turns out,
interesting games to watch this weekend. And that'll take us to a game that will not be interesting to watch. The Texans at the Cowboys. Cowboys favored by 16.5.
Yes, the all Texas team. Cowboys to win and cover. Good Lord. I mean, the Texans were trounced by the Browns without the Browns pretty much doing anything on offense for 4 quarters. So, yeah, the Texans will find a way to get blown out. Regardless of it seems the other team's offense is working or not. So.
I'm same with you, right? Cowboys to win and cover. The defense is good, too. I just think when you have 2 good units on both sides of the ball, that's going to lead to a lot of domination, especially against a team like the Texans who cannot figure things out. Next one up, we have the Philadelphia Eagles at the New York Giants. Eagles favored by 7 on the road. 7.
How much are they favored by? 7. Yeah, give me the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles are playing hard. I mean, they're playing well still. They're playing some of their best football, especially last week. I think they will.
I'll take the Eagles to win and cover. I think the Giants are fading, as we mentioned. The Eagles are still going strong. They'll probably drop a game, even with the easier schedule down the stretch, whether that's Cowboys or someone else. But I think they'll win this one. All right, see, so the Cleveland Browns at the Cincinnati Bengals. This is one where we're pretty interested in, and the only thing that makes me hesitant about this one is that the Browns seem to have the Bengals number over the last couple of years. Bengals favored by 6.
Give me the Bengals to win and cover. Here's why. The Bengals put up the ping pong tables in the locker room. So, it's all business this week. It's the infamous kind of kick into gear, put the ping pong tables away for a little bit, and let's. I mean, I think the Bengals are just straight up pissed. I mean, I think there was a lot of emotions going around in that Cleveland game. They just lost, one of their coaches in Adam Zimmer, Mike Zimmer's son, who was a, offensive quality. He literally passed away that day, the night before. So, I mean, that's a huge blow to any team to have somebody just literally pass away that same 24-hour period. Jamar Chase basically gets ruled out of kind of nowhere. And, Chidobe Awuzie goes down. We got a lot of guys just kind of getting thrown in there for the first time. Mike Thomas is the fourth receiver and was continuing for a little bit, and he's finally gone because he just wasn't playing well, and we found better behind him. So the Bengals team that played the Browns and Cleveland that game is almost feels like an infinite time away from who they are now. And you got to consider this, like, they lost the Browns twice last year. They've lost the Browns multiple times. Joe Burrow has not beaten the Browns yet, I believe, records-wise. But the first game in Cincinnati last year. And then the second game last year, we rested a really dominant game by Cleveland. The backups played decently well against them. And then this year was just an absolute mess. And that's not going to happen twice. The Bengals aren't going to overlook this game because, there's nothing worse than sitting there and watching tape weeks ago and getting embarrassed on national television. That makes you want to go out there and just show the Browns what they are, which is trash. And I think that's going to happen. And the Bengals to win and cover. They're going to win this by a touchdown.
Yeah, Bengals to win and cover. Your confidence scares me because it just seems like a mental block. But hey, they took the ping pong tables out. That's all that matters. Let's get a Bengals win and cover.
Ping pong tables are gone. That's like by million.
All right, Cease, the next game up, AFC North. The other game in the AFC North, we have the Baltimore Ravens at the Pittsburgh Steelers. This line has changed a couple times because Lamar Jackson's injury status. He's expected to be out in this game, so the Steelers are favored by 2.5.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick the Steelers actually. I'm gonna pick them to win, and I'm gonna take the Ravens with a small margin of points. I'm gonna hedge my bet here. I think it's just gonna be a really close game. You got, Tyler Huntley has been good in relief, but anywhere near Lamar Jackson level. And I think the Steelers are doing better and improving throughout the season, but they're still not a good football team. So I think this is a classic kind of rivalry game where they're gonna, cloud of dust and settles at the end. It's gonna be super close, and I'm gonna hedge my bet that way. But I ultimately think the Steelers come out victorious by the slimness of margins.
As mentioned, Tyler Huntley's played well in relief in the past. I think having a full week to prepare, I think he's going to be ready for the Steelers. I do think it's an ugly, close game, but I do think they win. And I do think that, give me the points with 2.5 points in such a close, spread. And honestly, division rivals like this, you just never know. All right, next one up, the last of the 1 p.m. games ceased. The New York Jets at the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills favored by 9.5.
Give me the Buffalo Bills to win. I'm going to take the points. I think that's matched up with them last time, and I think they're, Josh Allen obviously got hurt, and that really affected that game. But 9.5 points to a second-place team in a division where, it's very up for grabs. There's a lot at stake for both of these teams. I don't think that's a proper line. I would expect that to kind of go down as the week goes on. I think what the Jets have found with Mike White is, duplicable. They can duplicate what they did with Mike White the last couple of weeks. I think he's someone who is a safe enough option to put together a basic what you need from an NFL quarterback. He's not going to be elite, but it's just going to be a very, we can get passing yards with this guy, and that's really what they needed. I think they're going to play the Bills incredibly hard. Are they going to win? Necessarily that close. I think the Bills win by a touchdown, but 9.5 is a big spread for a rivalry game where both teams are playing for playoff implications.
Yeah, I'm going to the same pick as you. I'm going Bills to win, Jets against the spread. Jets defense is definitely great, and I think them playing against the Bills, whose offense has had some ups and downs since Josh Allen's injury. I think they can keep it close. The thing that scares me is Mike White. He's a good enough backup to get things done, but he always has these games where you're afraid he's going to throw 4 picks or something like that. I'll say they keep it close. I'll say the defense keeps them close, but the Bills will win. We'll move on to the 4 p.m. time slot. Cease. We have the Kansas City Chiefs at the Denver Broncos. Chiefs favored by 9.5.
Yep, give me all day long. Kansas City Chiefs are going to roll over this Broncos team who doesn't straight up have an offense. I mean, the amount of games they can't, I think they're averaging like 15 points. I don't even think they're averaging that a game. It's and they should just. I mean, I don't know how you really evaluate a coach in his first year, but this ain't it. You're an offensive head coach, and I don't know what you do with Nathaniel Hackett. I don't know how long you let this experiment. I don't know if you go, let's give it another year because it's not like, oh, it's the first year, obviously a building time. It looks devoid of any, progression, any like positive traits. It just looks awful. It looks like the offense has gotten worse under a offensive head coach than it did under a defensive head coach a year ago with arguably better personnel. So you tell me who the problem is here. It's Russell Wilson. It's Nathaniel Hackett. It's that simple. And do you give this another year? I mean, I give Russell Wilson a year because of what's tied in the money you've put on him. But I mean, Nathaniel Hackett, you're going to just put this duo together next year and just pray that you somehow can score more than 14 points next year. That's just a bad game plan, especially with new ownership for the Broncos.
Yeah, I don't like firing coaches after 1 year, but this has been pretty abysmal, so he probably deserves it. But in this game specifically, I'm going to go Chiefs to win and cover because why not? I mean, Mile High is tough to play in, but I just don't see their offense being stopped that often, even though the Broncos do have a solid defense. So I'll let them win. I'll let them win and cover. Carolina Panthers at the Seattle Seahawks. Cease, we mentioned the Seahawks going to be tailing off a little bit. Seahawks favored by 3.5 points.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it's in Seattle, so I get it. I mean, that's a huge home field advantage. One coming from Carolina to Seattle, so basically this game you get about 2 points for being the home team. So Vegas is not very happy with the Seahawks. Clearly, they've fallen off a little bit, but the Panthers aren't good. Sam Darnold could turn back into a turnover machine at any time, so. I think the Seahawks will make some timely turnovers, and I think they'll piece together an offense without Kenneth Walker. And I just think that home crowd is going to be a lot for a Carolina Panthers team that really has nothing to play for. It's just one of those simple games. The Seahawks need it. The Carolina Panthers, if anything, it just hurts.
Hey man, still alive in the playoff race with that NFC playoff picture, as bad as it is. So the problem here is the Panthers have not won a road game all season long. I don't think it's going to start traveling across the country to play Seattle. I think Seattle can win and cover this one, and I think they might be able to do it pretty easily, honestly. Next game up, Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers favored by 3.5. We mentioned that Brock Purdy will be the starting quarterback for the 49ers.
Give me the 49ers to win and cover. It does worry me that it's a rookie quarterback, but it's not like Tampa Bay's defense has been elite, especially when it comes to passing or anything like that. I think they'll be in a good spot. And I think this is a game where the 49ers defense is going to put Tom Brady down a couple notches from the last 2 weeks. And they're just a really good defense all around. Bucs have had some injuries on the offensive line. I going to pressure Tom a lot, and that's where Tom Brady always struggles. And I don't think it's going to necessarily be a blowout because the 49ers teams, that's just not how they're built. Now they have a rookie quarterback. But I think the 49ers will win this one soundly. So
for
them
Bucks.
to winning cover.
Go Bucks in the upset. You're going to give me points. I'm going to take the Bucks.
God, you just
Mr. Irrelevance, the quarterback, and Cease. I think while I did say it's the least important for the 49ers, it might be. It might be by the end of the season if we find this out. I think Vita Vea is going to take his lunch money, Brock Purdy's lunch money, and make it tough for him. I do not like either of these teams as currently constructed, which means Brock Purdy for the 49ers, and it means the Bucs playing bad. But you get Tom Brady going home for this game. You get Vita Vea up in Brock Purdy's face. I'll take my chances with the upset here. I mean, honestly, I both these teams I just don't like these next couple weeks. Sunday Night Football, sees we have maybe a must-win game for the Chargers. They're hosting. The Miami Dolphins are traveling to Los Angeles in this one, and Miami is favored by 3 on the road.
Um, do we have any health updates on what the tackle situation
We
in
do
Miami
not.
looks like? I'm assuming at least one of them's going to play, so that should make it at least decent. Chargers defense hasn't really done much. I'm going to pick the Dolphins to win and cover. I think this is a game they bounce back. Again, the Chargers, everything about them is very like they play the Chiefs well. Everyone thinks they're good. They just go back to being very mediocre. So Dolphins have played well. I hope they get tackled back, and so Tua doesn't get pressured too much. But I think they too good of a running game under Mike McDaniels coming from that 49ers culture that the Chargers cannot stop. And then they've got really good weapons, and the defense will be able to take care of what's going on with the Chargers good enough to win this
Yeah,
one.
I have the Dolphins. Everyone knows I'm pretty high on them this season. It seems like they've signed some guys to maybe give us some depth at tackle for the very least. Like you said, they probably should have at least one available for this game. The Chargers, beginning of the year, I would have taken this game. I would have taken them to win, but they just look bad. Doesn't mean um, it just I don't know. It just doesn't mean they're going to win this game. I'm going to go Dolphins to win, Dolphins to cover. Um, Chargers just not doing it for me, man. Just not really doing it for me. Monday Night Football: the New England Patriots at the Arizona Cardinals. New England is favored by 1.5 on the road.
Um, it's a game I could almost care less about. Um, give me give me the Patriots to win and I guess cover their tiny spread. I mean, I just don't like this game because I don't know who like these are teams where I'd stay away from a bet like this because I don't know what team is gonna come play for each of them. Like, is this going to be the Patriots team that locks it down on defense and gives Kyler Murray fits? Or are they going to be porous and then the offense is going to struggle mightily throughout and they're just not going to have a game plan? Is it going to be the Cardinals that can play very well with a good offensive weapons and make some timely plays on defense? Or is any kind of special double XP, any new
I
maps
have
coming
no
out that do
idea.
we know
I
of?
could never tell you that.
I don't know. I mean, anybody who's a really big Call of Duty fan, let us know because that could very much change the Vegas line. But yeah, I'll go with the Patriots. I think they're a better team. They're much better coached. Me having to go on a road game and a mobile quarterback like that can cost fits
I'll go
sometimes.
Cardinals. Um, I think these teams are similar talent level, honestly. Bill Belichick might be the deciding factor there, which probably works against me. But the Cardinals are at home. The Cardinals are coming off a bye. Should be able to get healthier. I'll take them. I don't like this game either. I do not like either team particularly much. But yeah, I'll go the Cardinals. Any final thoughts this week, Cease?
We're gonna have a great time at the Battle of Ohio this week. It's gonna be great. Revenge.
It's going to be a fun time, Cease. My final thought is going to be NFL. Please get rid of the Week 14 buys. There are 6 teams on buys this week. A lot of the teams could have fantasy implications. Falcons, Bears, Packers, Colts, Saints, Commanders. Any of those players are playing this week. It could really affect your chance at the playoffs if you haven't adjusted your league to get rid of Week 14 in the playoffs. It could be a playoff matchup week, and you could be sitting there without some of the guys like, I don't know, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Brian Robinson for the Commanders, Alvin Kamara. That's pretty messed up. So please change that. Please give buys on Thanksgiving. Do whatever you have to do that. But buys in like week 14. I mean, come on, to get them all out of the way from like week 5 until 13. There's enough weeks to do that. All right, so that is my final thought. My turn. Excuse me, my turn to remind everyone to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts at. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll see you guys next week.